because I have to get them down to business now and hear from them. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for being with us. I know you've been very busy up there, and we're going to be looking very much at resources and responsibilities, sustainable mining for, in developing countries. So we'll talk about Egypt, we'll talk about the region. Now, Your Excellency Al-Mullah, I know you had talked about responsible and sustainable mining practices in your opening, and you really focused and addressed ESG with a big focus on that. Perhaps you can just, tell us how can, I suppose, the government make sure that this happens and that you really put responsibility and sustainability at the heart of what you're doing.
Thank you, Edna. Actually, maybe I touched on that during my opening speech, as well as we had a very important closed round table. And I think for the sake of our guests here today, perhaps we can elaborate more on that. And actually, when we talk about what the government's role has to be done, is really to ensure that we put in place a really attractive investment environment. And that's why when we started, again, and I have to say this successfully, to go through an exercise seeing why we do not have a successful mining sector. I went through this exercise with important consultants, and then we developed whatever it took in order to make sure that we are on the proper roadway. I wouldn't repeat what we said, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we have the proper legislative code in place, fiscal regime, as well as the supporting laws. And these supporting laws will talk about taxes, environment, investment, repatriation of dividends. All this is very important for investors to understand. Need to understand the conditions on where they need to invest. Plus, definitely, and we had, of course, during this morning with us, Minister of Environment, in order to ensure and to explain what are the applied laws here in the country that is in alignment with international environment laws as well. We are talking about ESGs. We had, as Egypt, put our NDCs in place and our commitments. We make sure that also our mining is also going through the emissions reduction, and it is on the way. I didn't say that we are 100%, but we are on the way to have the proper transition to green mining. So this all together is the role of the government. As catalysts, we are availing and engaging with all investors, whether locally or internationally, through different channels, in order to make sure that we understand their needs and we explain what we did to accommodate the requests.
And this, again, it's an ongoing process, a busy time, and I know so many departments you're coordinating with as well. Your Excellency Al-Qurayef, we look at the drive in Saudi Arabia and the kingdom to really drive investment into the mining sector, and a lot has been happening. Can you bring us up to date in terms of, particularly what the Saudi government is doing to make sure that mining is the new frontier in Saudi, so to speak?
Thank you, and first of all, I would like to thank His Excellency for the great opportunity to be here. It's great to be in Egypt and meet our colleagues in the sector. Well, Saudi Arabia have chosen to focus on mining as a sector that will help the country in its targets to diversify the economy. We believe that the sector has a great impact from an economic point of view. So that is really our focus. Our focus is how we can bring and maximize the economic impact of the sector rather than the short-term monetary impact that could be a result of. Having said that, that also includes the social impact that the sector has. For us in Saudi, choosing also to link industry with mining is one of key elements of looking at the sector as an enabler to the industrialization of the country, to helping the global community address different challenges, and mainly the need for more and more minerals to satisfy the global community's needs for net zero targets. The disruption that we have seen in the last few years in supply chains is also an area where we see Saudi Arabia is really greatly positioned from natural resources, be it in oil and gas, in minerals, but also the location of the country allows it to be a main player in addressing challenges of supply chain. So what we have seen as a result of our strategy, of our different initiatives, such as the new mining law, such as the budgets that we have allocated and started our geological exploration targets, where we are now seeing great results from the work that has been done in the last 4 years alone, allowing investors to have more access to data, more clarity for example, in our geological survey database, in the investment that we have done also just recently to improve our mapping process, where we will have more digitalized mapping with high accuracy. We will continue, and we are continuing also to develop our infrastructure, both physical and digital infrastructure. We see that mining is also a great sector where new technologies can be introduced. We have seen this in the last Future Mineral Forum, where we had invited different suppliers of different systems. So we had a tech zone that was very interesting for different players. We see it's a great tool to introduce, technology where we will have much safer mines, much productive mines, energy efficient, and most importantly also having this environmental impact. So we are excited for this journey. We know it's a very long journey, but so far we see great attention from global players, be it participating in the bids that we have offered, but also in the licensing process that we are offering on a daily basis.
And we'll talk more about that, but there is, between Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and indeed in wider Africa, there's a lot going on, so it's a very exciting time, I think, in this industry. Your Excellency, Yunus, we look at Djibouti, and I suppose, unlike many other nations, you might not have a huge abundance of minerals, but you're blessed with some, and you have gold as well. What are you hoping to capitalize when it comes to the mining sector, particularly for Djibouti?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam, and my brother Excellency Tarek Al-Molla, in representing in Cairo today. Historically, Djibouti, the mining sector is very young. The government of Djibouti puts the mineral sector the last 10 years, but we established it for the mining code, new mining code. We work with the Again Minister for the research also in the direction of natural resources, the development for all mineral resources in Djibouti. Djibouti, we have a lot of potential with the mining, gold, iron, lithium, but now what we need, the goal of the government is the attractive mining code. We need geophysical and geological map with the country. But the government will push with the development with the sector. We hope, inshallah, with the next 5 years, we develop the lot of potential in Djibouti, the gold of another minerals.
And again, I think we're going to be dealing with many of these issues in the course of our conversation throughout the day. I think when we talk to the drillers too and the junior miners, they'll talk a lot about getting that geological map and making sure everything is in place. So good luck to you, sir, too, as well. Your Excellency, we look at Equatorial Guinea, and again, you have significant mining resources, gold, diamonds, titanium, bauxite, iron ore, but you've had a lot of focus on hydrocarbons in the last few years, like many African countries. How do you make the shift now? And how do you really, really start to pay equal amount of attention for the mining operation?
Thank you very much, moderator, for giving me that this opportunity in this panel to at least explain to all the people gathered here today how a country that historically is known as an oil producer could effectively launch mining operations. Indeed, these have been done easily, and it is achieved based on the previous accrued experience to becoming an oil producer. In fact, Equatorial Guinea's oil and gas fast-track activities development occurs from early 1992 through 2014, when have already peaked the highest level of its development, thanks to the government policies that allowed the enactment of the first petroleum regulation in 1981, used to attracting moderate investment to the oil sector. Similarly, and at the same time, the mining regulation also was enacted in June 1981, and further amendment occurred in 2006 and lately 2019, with the aim to accommodate more competitive terms as the sector requires from time to time. This open door policy to participate in the new licensing process through direct application and negotiation with the state made it possible that today's presence in EG mining sector of different mining companies operating in 5 prospecting and exploration licenses, which were granted after the first mining licensing round in the country in 2019. But we encountered certain stagnation on continuing developing our promotional activity because the pandemic crisis have already interfered, and most of the potential licensors, they have already abandoned the process. And 2 years later, those who had already succeeded to make it happen, the first gold exploitation contract was signed. Today, EG is jumping from artisanal mining to national mining industry. Companies like Shefa Gold and Blue Magnolia are enjoying with successful achievements in their respective gold exploitation and exploration activities in Equatorial Guinea.
Well, it's good to hear there's so much going on. And again, I think it really is about making sure you have that code in place, and good luck again in terms of all of the great work. Now we're going to take a look at what's in Ghana, and particularly I think we see so much interest from investors in this region, and the potential is there. But where do you see, Mr. Duker, the role of the government particularly? What do you think that the government has to do in terms of encouraging investment and making sure that it's a productive and a profitable sector?
Right, thank you very much for the opportunity and regards from Ghana. I believe government must show the way. You have to have a regulatory framework that will seek to admit investors and give them that confidence that you don't in a way, change the rules at the middle of the game. That when they are coming, they know that this regime will ensure continuity of governance and the democracy is well established. That there wouldn't be a situation where a government moves out of power and then terminates the contract that the company establishes. So you have to ensure that continuity, and it gives confidence. Another thing that you need to also ensure is capacity in terms of deepening the education for the people to understand what they have. Because if they don't understand what they have, then they tend to do different things. There's no collaboration between the company that has been established and the communities around. There must be that cohesion, relationship between the communities and that of the company. And that will depend on the sort of education the government will give to its citizenry. So it is important to build capacity. We talk of local content. If the people are not having the capacity, how will they be taken on board? And if they are not, they tend to also feel like they are not benefiting from the resources that they have been given. So it's important for government to show that leadership of establishing also infrastructure, which is key in assisting the investor to kind of having confidence that the government is going to have that adequate roads, rail lines, and all the assistance that they could also get from government. And then don't forget also, as a government, if you attracting investors, you need to also build on value addition, which is key in terms of establishing a base where the country would then benefit out of. So you don't, in a way, depend on raw exploitation of your mineral resources. Because of time, possibly I may not have that leisure to take you through. But Ghana is really doing well in terms of democracy, in terms of having legal framework, and in terms of understanding what we have, especially veering into the lithium market.
No, we will have time. I'll come back to you. Don't worry on that. Your Excellency Al-Mullah, almost taking on what the Honorable George Duker was just talking about there. Everybody has to be involved. Communities have to be involved. And I suppose it's about getting that balance right. When you're attracting foreign investment, into projects, how are you making sure that they're looking after communities, looking after the environment, and preventing a negative impact? That's the one key thing we want to make sure does not happen.
Yeah, thank you, Etna, for this important question. And actually, I have to remind our audience and the participants that actually last year we hosted the COP27. And among the important messages there was that we, as Egypt, we were representing Africa in the COP27. And why I'm emphasizing this important point, that we therefore are talking about inclusion. We are having to talk about including everybody in this important transition period. But when we talk about Africa, Africa is a little bit different than any other part in the world regarding how and when is needed for the transition, and what are the targets, the commitments, the indices that are requested from the African continent and the African countries. So we have all common goals, as always said, but with differentiated responsibilities. And therefore, when we request investors to come and we put for them what we have here in Egypt and applied laws, so we talk about environmental impact assessments first. So, and I think that we had the Minister of Environment thoroughly talking about this. We want to have the mining industry integrated with the supply chain. We needed to complement the industry. So it is the first step to a complete value chain of the mine and with the industry. So you take, therefore, the full value chain in your study, and therefore our government is trying deeply to understand all the challenges, and therefore it has incorporated all the enablers for investors. So when we talk again of inclusion and how we are responsibly managing this important segment, we are engaging with the society where we operate. So first, we need to make sure that we abide to local laws and international laws regarding environment. And therefore, as we said, EIA is a mandate, and then we take it from there for licensing on a pilot project, and then we take it on a full license. The other thing that we are talking about at the same time is the circular economy, and we need to use all what we do have on a friendly manner. I'm talking about all the utilities and all the material that we are using during mining. At the same time, we are trying to be more efficient, and being more efficient by using efficient tools, efficient machinery, efficient vehicles and machines in the mining operations themselves. As well as perhaps we have been able to demonstrate that we are also using renewable energy in our sites, and we started that at our biggest gold mine, Sukkari, and we were able to inaugurate and to open the first power plant in our mining sector regarding implementation of solar energy in some of the facilities, which is extendable, and we are trying to demonstrate that we are responsible. Therefore now, with all the newcomers and that we are having successfully engaged now with us, all the international companies, taking care on working on efficiencies and with renewable powers as well. The last point, which is how we can operate while developing our people and training them in order to increase their awareness, and lastly, which is very important, the role of CSR, the social responsibility of the mining companies to the communities where they operate. So we are opening some institutes, some schools to enhance the skills of youngs there in order to let them able and to enable them to perform in better manners, especially when we talk about mining industry.
And I'm really looking forward to, when you're doing your report for me, I suppose, so to speak. At the end of the day tomorrow, we definitely want to talk about that and a lot more. And, Your Excellency Al-Kharaya, just like this forum that we have here, it's almost a time where we can report back to the industry and we can take the pulse of the industry. You have, of course, the Future Minerals Forum in Saudi Arabia as well. You've put in place, and we're hearing here, the need for certainty, if you can have it in the extractive industry, but at least the certainty coming from the government, the new mining investment law that you made sure was put in place. What are you getting the response to that, and how are investors looking towards that now, I suppose, with more clarity for what they do in Saudi Arabia?
I think it's important also to mention that the investment law that we have launched is actually a result of the feedback we have been getting, and also best practices that we have seen around the world. I think, investors, and I come from private sector, and I know exactly what more or less what investors they want. Investors, they want to make money, definitely. They want to eliminate risk, and they want an opportunity for growth. So what we have tried to do in the investment law is address all of these things. an investment opportunity where it allows people to actually make money, good amounts of money. This is also translated in that taxation calculation that we are doing. Secondly, it is allowing investors to have clarity with regards to their investments. The amount of clarity that we are introducing is need also, we are now showing the discipline, because that's very important. We are mindful of the fact that investments in mining is a long-term investment, and therefore we are creating a mechanism where we are agile and able to meet the different changes in the environment. And finally, the growth potential in the country is great, where today we see investors who are coming, they are looking for an actual long-term and growing their presence in Saudi. We have seen this in the amount of licensing that we are offering in different locations. We have seen this in the repeating investors repeating their participation in the different auctions that we have launched. So, on the other hand, the transparency of the sector is key. One of the key lessons we have learned is that different practices which unfortunately led to, I would say, bad reputation of the sector was more and more towards the ambiguity of the different laws and so on. So clarity is important. The access to information is an important enabler of the sector. Definitely the sector also, from the environment point of view, as His Excellency was explaining, the relation with the policymakers in the environment is key. The relation with the energy sector, where it is also an important input. So this is really what the investment mining law brings to the table. And probably the most important element is the time of licensing. The complexity in the system in the past to get approvals from the different government entities for the specific location was actually a very inefficient, at least to say, system. Today we are running a system that is allowing us issue licenses that are within 90 to 180 days. Full license and also different licenses to be converted. So the upgrade of the license from exploration to mine and so on.
And that speed, I think, is essential. Investors want to move quick because they have choice. And Your Excellency, Qaidi, you talk about this being a young business, a young sector in Djibouti. And also not all countries in Africa are created equally. You're a small country as well, just more than just 1 million population. GDP is low. World Bank don't have you in the top 50, let's say. You're a little lower. So there's so much there that has to be done. The growth potential is there, but growth, yes, for investors and return for investors, but growth also for the country. This must be your big focus now, is it?
Thank you, Madam. Yes, it's true, Djibouti is a small country, but Djibouti is the gateway in East Africa.
And you have the port.
We have the government invested for the now 5 ports, the continental ports, multiple ports, mineral ports. Now we have 5 ports, oil and gas ports. Djibouti is services country.
And strategic,
yes. We deserve the all East Africa country, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, and now we have also we built the mineral ports in Gubet. We export for various mineral and the salt, and also we have another port, mineral ports. We export also. We need the exports for the all mineral resource in Ethiopia, like phosphates. Djibouti, we have also logistical platform in East Africa. We have the market, commercial markets, 400 million people in
The access to
access for desert for East Africa. But what we need today we need investment in the mining sector. We have also very interested climate affairs, favorite for the business, for the old generation. We have the free zone also. The free zone in Djibouti is the last biggest free zone in East Africa.
So being small is no disadvantage. It's in fact something we have to take as an advantage. Again, looking at Equatorial Guinea, Your Excellency, the big challenges, particularly in greenfield sites. How do you make sure, because everybody is competing for investments and many brownfield sites might look more attractive. So when you look at greenfield sites, how can you get the investment there?
Thank you, Madam, for asking me that question. It is important to highlight first that Equatorial Guinea is a relatively small country. The country is divided into two sides. There is an island side and mainland side. In the mainland side is where the mining potential is highest. But the territory surface is so small that carrying out any mining activity, in case of any successful exploration campaigns, we are going to face with the difficulties of how best and how efficient, how sustainably we could develop those resources. In fact, Africa has certain challenges, is that many of the countries in Africa, they have no well-defined boundaries. But one of the important culture that Equatorial Guinea has today is the peace and stability. It's one of the most stable countries in Africa, mostly in the Central Africa. That has become a culture for the population. The first thing that the population was concerned about is whether that peace and stability is going to be maintained, knowing what is happening in other parts of Africa because of the mining activities. In that regard, the first major challenge that the government has faced is to interact with the local population in terms of convincing them that the way how Equatorial Guinea have utilized the revenues from the oil activities for further develop the infrastructure of the entire country. And again, after assuming the responsibility that those revenues are not going to just be limited to develop the infrastructure of the nation, but again, boost or promote other sectors' activities so that the income, the revenues of the country could be maintained steady. In that case, the mining sector come across for the diversification purposes of the economy. So we are forced. Moreover, when actually our production profile is declining time to time, so that we could promote other sector activities. We have already identified 5 key sectors for diversification: the tourism, the agriculture, the fishery, the mining, and petrochemicals. As you could see, Equatorial Guinea has almost 10 times surface, maritime surface than land. In that case, the first challenge was to convince the people.
And it's about, I think, making sure that, you put it on the mining map. Again, there's competition out there, so I think you all have to do this.
Yeah.
Honorable Duker, we look at, again, the public and private sector must work together. you know, stability in Ghana, without a doubt, peace in Ghana, I think we've seen that. How, you know, creative are the government regulations now that you're really making sure that everything is in place to get that public-private partnership?
It's very important for us as a country to make good use of what we have. And as we've established the African Continental Free Trade Area in Ghana, I believe as a continent we need to work together to deepen our relationship. And in doing so, we must also recognize that we host no less than 30% of natural resources as far as our continent is concerned. Last 2021, we reported not less than 22.2% of total gold produced in the world. So if we do this, and working around, if we are not careful and don't work carefully, posterity will not forgive us. So we must be conscious of this and must establish that kind of legal framework that will seek to partner each and everyone. An investor must be a family, and investor should not be seen as somebody coming to exploit and go, but somebody coming in for a win-win kind of situation.
I think without a doubt it has to be win-win. We're not winning on the time game here, so I'm going to wrap this one up. But let me stay with you first. If you had a quick call to action, something that can be done very quickly, I just want to make sure that everybody gets a final word here. What would it be in 30 seconds? What can you do right now to really make sure that it's win-win?
I believe Africa must have a say in pricing of gold. We cannot just sit and produce the gold, but we don't have a say in pricing of gold.
I like that, yes. Your Excellency, again, a quick call to action that can be something urgent that we can do to make sure we have a long life in the mining sector. What would you want? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is to make sure that there is a market which is created inside a country where the mining activities are being carried out. And that market could benefit all the stakeholders.
I like that. I have a panel actually tomorrow too. We're going to be looking at local content. I think we'll pick up on some of what you're saying. Your Excellency, again, a quick win in terms of a call to action, if need be.
The most key in developing the mining sector in Africa is we work together. We work together, we share for the potential, for the knowledge, in the skill for the younger.
Your Excellency Farayev, you know, there's so much going on at the minute, there's a lot of urgency, there's a lot going on. So again, just, I suppose that call to action to people out there.
I think collaboration is really the word. When we looked at you know, this area, Africa, Middle East, and Central Asia, 33% of the global reserves of minerals, and they need help. They need a lot of work. So collaboration between the international community and bringing also role models, showing success stories where people can change their perception about mining to be a more active investment class than it used to be.
Again, I think every country can learn from other countries. You know, there's no point reinventing the wheel everywhere. And that's, I think, what's wonderful about so much going on in this dynamic market at the moment, that everybody can learn as we go. I'll give you the closing word. You have so many long lists in your call to action.
Thank you, Etna. I think that we had a very fruitful session, and the audience can witness that and can demonstrate that and can tell that we had very constructive discussions. I think that we are aligned. Over the last few years, I think that as much as we have been engaging with different parties and different countries and different decision makers, I think that we've reached somehow good alignment. So therefore, we have to continue on collaboration and engagement between governments, between private sector, between state companies, between financial institutes, international organizations, and these are needed in order to develop our resources. Our resources are really untapped yet, all of us, and I think that with these technologies now, with all the learnings and all the availability of serious investors, I think that we can do it properly and do it with optimization. The world is still, as I said, in full need of our resources, and our people in our countries and our continent, especially in Africa, is in bad need of these resources for the welfare and the economy of our countries. Actually, we are blessed to have on this panel resource-rich Arabian Nubian Shield, as well as the African continent, which is the richest mine ore of resources. So therefore, I think we have a lot of potential of untapped resources, and I think that as we go, it is more clear that we are all aligned, and there is a very good and successful future to come for all of us. Thank you.
And indeed, I think this is what we have to really be looking at, without a doubt. And a lot of these topics we're going to discuss here, we have the investment people, we have the financiers, we have the development banks, all of that we're going to hear from in the next day and a half that's left now. I just want to thank you all so much, Your Excellency Al-Mullah, of course, Your Excellency Al-Qarayaf, thank you so much for also Your Excellency Ali Gaidi, thank you so much, Your Excellency Esondo, and Your Excellency Honorable Duper. Again, thank you all so much for being with us, and good luck with all the great plans you have in place. And again, I hope you all learn from each other. Everyone open for business, so I hope you meet some good investors in the next day and a half too. Once again, thank you so much.